Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's get situated here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Before we get started, here we go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I know it's bright and early on a Monday morning. So I like to come on Monday mornings, give you your real estate market update. And so here we are today. So I'm really excited about the real estate market. We're a little anxious. The market has definitely improved. There's a lot of buyers out there. We still are dealing with a low inventory situation. And so I'm going to talk about that, what it means if you are a buyer, and then also what it means if you're a real estate investor, what we're seeing. So I'll go over that in just a little bit. But some things that I just want to point out that we're seeing in the marketplace. Number one, it's saying that nearly 4 million homeowners are in COVID-19 mortgage bailout. So that means there are a lot of families out there that are struggling to pay their mortgage payment. A lot of those folks went into a forbearance at the early points of the quarantine period, and now they're just trying to work their way out. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of Americans who are unemployed or furloughed from their employment. And so this is causing a lot of financial distress, and families are unable to make their mortgage payment. Most recently, the government has announced that it extended the moratorium that was put in place, and it extended out to the end of December 31st to help those families not lose their home and prevent foreclosure from happening. On the rental side of it, though, we are seeing some evictions taking place. A lot of the courts are actually doing a Zoom eviction process. But if you are in a situation where you cannot pay your rent, there is help out there. There's funding for you guys out there available. Cleveland Housing Network here in the Cleveland market, they have funds available. You can reach out to them and they will help assist you with payment of your rent. If you are dealing with a situation of not being able to pay your pay your mortgage, there is also help with you filling out the paperwork, communicating with your mortgage company. You can give my office a call at 216-220-7886 to talk about that as well. On a higher level, just thinking about the real estate market and everything that's going on. And while this is not directly related to real estate per se, buying and selling, one of the things that you guys need to think about is stocks. When you're trying to decide what to purchase, just think about what's going on in the marketplace and areas to watch out for. So, because there's such limited inventory on the housing market, one of the things that we're seeing a spike in is the need for new construction. And there's a lot of builders out there that kind of specialize in that first time home builder market. And so that's one area that you want to pay close attention to in the stock market and start putting some money there, because there's two things that could happen to open up some inventory. Number one, we need new construction because new construction creates another route for homeowners to move in new inventory. So when you think about that, those new construction builders who are publicly traded, they are going to be doing very well in the stock market. So it's important that you kind of get in there now and watch that stock start to grow for you. Also, when you think about new construction, you should also be thinking about what goes into new construction. That's your lumber and supplies that go into that new build. So you want to look in those areas to invest in as well. So, not directly dealing with real estate, but in the same route of just focusing in on building wealth for you and your family, and that is investing in real estate, and as well as investing in stocks. And what better way to do it but to look at stocks related to real estate? So I do have a slide I'm going to share with you guys. So I am going to share my screen right now. All right, so you should see my screen. So the first thing I want to talk about is employment status, what we're seeing in the marketplace and how it's impacting the real estate market. So there's still a number of people that are losing their jobs. And so when you think about you wanting to buy a home, or even rent a home, but more so buy a home, the lender is going to look at your employment status. This is very important for you to understand, to prepare yourself now and in the future if you're thinking about buying your home. So that employment status is, are you currently employed or unemployed? So as part of that, the lender is going to review your file and to determine that, are you likely to have a job in the future? How long have you been on your job? So on average, that lender is going to look at your employment status over a 2-year period. So they like to see that you have been on the same job for 2 years. For them, that creates a stability. And so when you have a break in that, that is a red flag, and this could cause them to reject your loan. Now, if within that 2-year period, if you have a break in it because you made a lateral or you moved up in the position, then they will kind of overlook that or override that and continue to move forward. But if you are in a position where you are in nursing right now, and then you change from nursing to become a chef, that doesn't sound as stable when you talk about a lender and how they're reviewing your files. So you want to think about this when you have a plan. Oftentimes we just make a move and we don't think about the impact of how it impacts our goals that we said that we want to achieve. So if you have a goal of wanting to buy a home, you need to prepare yourself. Oftentimes you can have a goal of wanting to buy a home, but you also may have a goal of wanting to change careers, wanting to become an entrepreneur, wanting to or deciding to have a baby and be a stay-at-home mom while that baby is a newborn. So before you decide to work on some of those other goals, you have to kind of lay it out to decide the kind of like an order of operation as to what makes sense, or what strategic moves you need to make to get you to all of your goals, but that end goal. So there's a number of people that are losing their job right now, again, due to COVID-19. When you go into the stores, you go into the mall, I'm noticing that, all of the stores, they're closing early, they're opening late. That has an impact on employees. So maybe you're not getting as many hours at work, or your job just kind of let you go. Businesses are closing, so you lost your job completely. So through all of this, there's something that I want you to remember if you're going through this situation, is that you try to find employment before 6 months. Try to stay with employment, off of employment for no longer than 6 months. The reason is the lender, that's kind of like their guideline of what they go off of. So because of COVID-19, that can be an extenuating circumstance. It's something that we can talk through with the underwriter who may be reviewing your loan. So saying that, oh, I was furloughed for this period of time. So 6 months and under, they can kind of work with or bend the rules sometimes. Anything longer than 6 months, that's going to put you into another status, and they're going to be looking for like another 2-year period in there. So that's definitely going to impact you. So you don't want to stay on employment for longer than 6 months. You want to try to find a job that is a lateral move or a step up from where you were. So it's important, that lender is always looking at, are you employed or are you going to remain employed? So your loan could be rejected if you've been on your job for less than 2 years. And then self-employed. This always comes up for self-employed individuals, and it's important for you to understand as well. So the lender is going to look again that 2-year period. So whether you are W-2 or a 1099 or self-employed individual, they're always focusing in on that 2-year period. But self-employment, they're also going to be looking at 2 years of your tax returns. So how they determine how much of a home that you can afford is by looking at that 2-year period. They're going to be looking at your net income, not your gross, your net income. They're going to add those 2 years together and kind of divide it in half. And that's where they're going to come up how much your annual income is. So if you took a loss in the year prior, that's going to go against so for example, in 2018, if you took a loss of say $5,000, but in 2019, on that 2019 tax return, you had made $50,000. Well, that $5,000 loss is going to be subtracted from the $50,000 that you made in 2019. So you want to prepare when you're doing your taxes. Business owners, you tend to write off so much on your tax returns because you do not want to pay taxes. As we kind of move through this, I know no one likes to pay taxes, but at a certain point, you're going to have to pay taxes so that you can show the income that you are truly making. It sounds counterproductive. You're trying to save money, keep money, but in the long run, it helps you out because the more money that you can show available, the more loans, the higher the loan amount the lender will be able to give to you. Not just from buying a home, this is for business credit and anything else that you're trying to do out there. They're always going to be looking at that net. In addition to your tax returns as a self-employed individual, they're also going to want to see your profit and loss statement. And now, because of COVID-19, they have become a lot more strict on this. So they may want your profit and loss to be more certified, meaning that accountant has reviewed it. Typically, for most people, your accountant is reviewing your information on an annual basis when they file your tax returns. But potentially, the lender may require that it's certified, for whatever month or whatever that latest statement that you provided to the lender, saying that these are actual numbers. So they are definitely a lot more strict on the when you are self-employed. One of the options that you may be able to do, there are some mortgage brokers out there that may be a little more flexible with you to be able to get a mortgage, just understanding and working with you. But just know when you go these alternative methods, usually that loan is a little bit more expensive. So you're paying for it in one way or another. Either you're paying your taxes so that you could show that higher income, or you're paying more for someone to do that loan for you. That's something that you want to definitely sit down and speak with your your accountant, and possibly even your attorney to decide what is the best route for you to go. These are my intentions and plans. In a year or in 2021, I plan on purchasing a home. I want to be in the best position to be able to do that. Okay, 1 second here. All right, so now I want to take a look at the numbers. So for August, this is kind of where we're at for the August numbers. So far, we are at the number of home sales at 1,709. The average sale price is 205. Number of new listings is at 2,197, and average days on market is 44. The average sale price dropped down a little bit from what we saw about a week ago by like $5,000. The average days on the market is the same from last week. Now, this is the last day of the month, so all of our numbers are not going to be in yet. The numbers will start to roll in as agents begin to close out their files, and we'll start to see the actual numbers of where we ended for the month of August. So, I want to talk about what is happening in the fix and flip market. So, the number one question is, are people still fixing and flipping houses? And yes, they are still fixing and flipping houses. This is a very lucrative thing to do. So, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, this is where you buy a house for low, you do the renovation on it, and then you sell it for a much higher dollar to make a profit on there. This is still happening in the market. However, what we are seeing with the lack of foreclosures coming to the market, because at the beginning of this, remember I was mentioning that there's a moratorium in place that holds off on foreclosures happening until now, December 31st. So what traditionally happens is on a monthly basis, homes are coming to the market because they're going through this foreclosure process. And because there's been this moratorium, meaning a stop to these foreclosures, it's not saying that it won't happen. It's giving people an opportunity to save their home potentially. But it's all for those people who are going to default regardless, it's just holding it off. So at a certain point in the future, we may see an influx of inventory coming to the market of these foreclosures. But for now, it's really hard finding these properties. Areas to look for properties are going to be either through some off-market deals. There are some people that are doing short sales on their properties, and those short sales are people who have identified that they are in a bad situation and that they cannot continue to make payment on their home and have decided to sell the home for a lesser amount than what the market is saying is value, or more than for less than what they own, and the bank agrees to whatever that in dollar amount is. So the fix and flip market, it is still happening. There's always investors out there looking for deals and opportunity. You just want to make sure that you have to be a little bit more patient in this market. When you become impatient, what happens is you go out, you find a property, you start working on it, and you kind of either get in over your head, or you just got into a situation where you're not making any money on that deal. So you want to be more patient. So now more than ever, it's important that you understand your numbers. What is it going to cost to prepare that property? So because that there is much lower inventory and a higher demand, we're seeing that the price of these potential properties of the foreclosures that may be sitting on the market, there's a higher demand for the price of those foreclosures, or those distressed properties are much higher. So because they're much higher, that means that it's eating into your budget. And because it's eating into your budget, it may not be the right opportunity. So it's important that you really focus in on the renovation costs and have a better understanding, clearer understanding of what those renovation costs are going to be. Because if you don't, you can run into a situation where you lose money on the deal just because you thought that it was going to be at one point, but it comes back a little differently. So that's definitely for the fix and flip market. You really want to focus in, have a good contractor, have someone show you how to come up with those costs, gauge it a little bit higher than you normally would, add some fluff in there to help protect yourself. And if the numbers do not work, do not try to force it. Just walk away, or you can always place an offer on that property at a number that makes sense to you. So that doesn't mean you necessarily have to walk away from that opportunity. That just means that you have a limit of where you're willing to offer on that property. So understanding like, hey, I can make it work if I can get it for this amount. You offer at that amount, and if it's a no, they won't accept it, then you just walk away from the deal at that point. So it's very important. If you are not familiar or know how to gauge, and how to prepare or focus in on those renovation costs, I do have an ebook that I wrote that has a template in there that provides you the breakdown of how to write up your costs, or how to prepare for a fix and flip project. So I will provide a link here. It's $19.99. That's definitely available to you guys. So the real estate term that I want to talk to you about is dual agency. So I want to let you know that comes up. Well, what exactly is a dual agent? So a dual agent is when a broker or real estate agent is representing both the buyer and seller in the transactions. Now, here in the state of Ohio, it is required that whenever there is a dual agency happening, we have to notify you as our client. We actually have to notify you and let you know in what capacity we are representing you regardless. This is a form called an agency disclosure statement. If any of you have bought or sold real estate, then you have probably signed a agency disclosure statement. In that agency disclosure statement, it lists who your agent is, who is representing you as the buyer, who's representing you as the seller, what company that agent is working for. And also will let you know if you're working as a dual agent. So there's pros and cons, to working with a dual agent. We often see this come up, especially when you're talking about in the investment world. Some of the pros, if you are a seller in that situation, you might be able to save on some of the commission by working out an agreement with that agent to charge a lesser commission, since they are that dual agent. Some brokers and agents will work with you. The cons is that you have to understand that when someone is working as a dual agent, there could be a conflict of interest there. They're listening to the seller side. They're listening and have what would normally be confidential information on the buyer side. So when you see that, you can ask questions. You can always request that another agent be brought into the transaction, whatever is needed, as long as that agent or broker notifies you, lets you know upfront what's going on. And if you feel confident that this agent or broker is going to handle the transaction in a professional manner that you agree to, then there's nothing wrong with doing this. So in this section, I just want to talk about some Q&A for a little bit. I am going to go over a question. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Before I do that, if you are not already, please like and subscribe to either my YouTube channel or my Facebook channel. I'm on here every Monday morning at 7:30 a.m. with your real estate market update. So please, please, please. Share. So if you have any questions, feel free. You can type it in the chat box. I will answer your questions here. I am going to go over a question that I received this week, and that was about a cosigner. The question was that, could you have a cosigner to offset that individual not having a job? So in this example, this individual did not have a job. They had lost their job due to COVID-19. So they were in a situation where they needed to move. They wanted to buy a home. They felt that they were going to have a job in the near future and that they had a cosigner. So their hopes was that they could put the loan in their name and bring the cosigner onto the transaction to help them out. So I will say this: if you do not have a job, then the lender is going to reject you. It's not even a need for you to go on to the loan application if you have a cosigner, because they are just going to reject you. There's no income for you to use. So you just have to think about that. Like if you were a bank, if you were lending, someone says, hey, I want to borrow some money for you, but I don't have a job. I do not have a clear way that I can explain to you today of how I'm going to pay you back. Would you do this? And in most cases, the answer is going to be no. And so that's no different from when you're talking about a mortgage lender or broker. They need to see stability. They need to do a loan based on what makes financial sense. And an individual not having a job, for them to give a loan does not make a good business decision for them. So if you have someone that will be a cosigner for you, in essence, they will be only going on that loan themselves. They will not have a need for you. Now, that does two things. Number one, is the lender is going to ask if that individual is going to be living with you. If they're going to be living with you, not a problem. You can go the route of a traditional loan. Your name can always go on the deed or the title to the property. So if that individual, say it was a friend that you were living with and you were afraid that, something, there would be a fallout one day and they could take the property, well, they wouldn't be able to do so because your name would be on the deed, the title of record as one of the owners as well. Your name just would not go onto the mortgage. So the second question, or the second thing that could come up, is if that individual is not going to be living with you, then the lender is going to treat that as either a second property for that individual if they already own a property, or as like a rental property. So when they view it as a rental property, the guidelines change. When we're talking owner occupant, your lender is going off of one set of guidelines. There's guidelines in place that lenders have to follow, that is set forth many times by the government. They have to follow these guidelines. So if that individual is saying no, they're not going to be living with you, then that means that it follows that investor guideline. They're treating it almost like it's a rental property for that individual, even though you're going to be the one living there and paying that mortgage. So based on the guideline, what it looks like, that they have just purchased a rental property. So because the guideline changes, your credit score requirements may increase, the amount of money needed in reserves may increase. So you're talking about an individual that may need stronger credit in order to be able to be approved for this loan. The down payment could also go up on this as well. So these are all things that you have to think about in terms of buying a home. In some cases, it may just be better just to wait it out, focus on finding that job so you can go ahead and purchase that home on your own. Remember the guidelines of what I said before, not to be unemployed for no longer than 6 months. You want to try your best to find employment before a 6-month period in a lateral move or a up move from the position that you were already in. So, these increased requirements, it kind of hurts people. I feel sorry for some folks because it's like you really need to move. You may have to just settle on securing employment and then moving into a rental. Take a year to kind of rebuild yourself. That next thing that comes with that next question that we always get is for a rent to own or a lease purchase property. Then I would say if you can hold off, it's just really best to hold off than to going that route. Traditionally, what we see from those people there's more people that do not follow through on that contract. So you end up losing money that follow through on the contract. Usually you're paying more for the house. It's more costly for you to do that. You oftentimes are required to handle the maintenance on those properties. So just may have to be a little bit more patient, focus in on moving into a rental unit for the next year, rebuild your credit, follow through, have that plan, create more of a savings for yourself. So that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, send me a private message or comment here. I will respond to you. I hope you found this information useful for you. And again, like or subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week, Monday at 7:30 with your weekly market update. Have a good day, guys.